Hello there, player. When last we left our character, he was looking exactly like me. Hmm? Yeah? How's that? I can't get the angle right. Anyway, and we went over how to customize him. He was wearing chainmail, longsword, and a shield. He's got an armor class of 19, which is badass. And he's got a longsword in which he is proficient. And now we will go over what all of this stuff means. So you can see here I've got this thing on the side. This is like the side panel which I've locked. You can unlock it, you can move it to this side if you want to. I don't know why you'd want to do that. It's best on the left. And let's get on with it. So we explained in the last video all of these guys: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma. These are the 6 ability scores, and you'll notice they appear on this page twice. This is not a very efficient way of organizing a thing, but I didn't program this. So they appear once as just the base scores, which these numbers, the actual ability scores 16, 14, and so on, you don't really use in the game, or you don't actually use them at all in the game. What you do use are the modifiers, which is why they're at the top. And if you need to roll a strength check, for example, if you're trying to arm wrestle somebody or whatever, you're going to need to roll a strength check, and you do that. You roll a 15 plus 3, which is your modifier for strength, because we have a 16. We went over that in the last video. The strength check came out to 18, so pretty good chance we just succeeded on whatever the hell that was that we were supposed to be doing. So one thing to keep in mind, or perhaps I should have started the video with this: when you do anything in this game, what does that mean? I think this is something that when you see all these like Critical Role has the Handbook a Helper series where they explain a lot of stuff to you, and it kind of doesn't make sense because you have nothing to anchor it to. When I say something like you arm wrestle somebody in a role-playing game setting, whether this is Dungeons and Dragons or Call of Cthulhu or Warhammer 40k or any other role-playing game, tabletop role-playing game that takes place in everybody's collective imagination, that is what's happening. To do something means to say, I am arm wrestling this guy, for example. There's no board where you put your token on an arm wrestling section of the board. You just say you do something, and that is the same as you doing that thing, or at least trying to. You can fail or succeed. So because the game takes place in your imagination and everybody else at the table's imagination, that's the thing that makes it amazing. You can do anything. You can say, I'm going to try to climb up the wall, and the DM will tell you that's going to be very difficult, but you can try. And you try to climb up the wall, and maybe you succeed. Who knows? Depends on your dungeon master. There are limits to freedom, because I mean, there are rules to the game. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a game, right? You can fail and succeed. But anything you can think of, you can at least try. So, having said that, you arm wrestle a guy, you roll a strength check to see if you successfully arm wrestle him. So he's going to also roll a strength check, or she, and whoever gets the highest strength score wins the arm wrestling match, or it ends in a tie. That's the way the game works. To do something, all you got to do is say, I do this thing. Right, now, back to this duplication of these ability scores. So these, you'll notice, are in a little box called saving throws. What is a saving throw? A saving throw is something that you do in order to resist something that is being done to you. So, for example, if a boulder is hurtling towards you, right, you may do a Constitution saving throw in order to see if you can just stand your ground and let the boulder ricochet off you like you're an immovable object, right? That would be a Constitution saving throw. You can do a Dexterity saving throw to see how quickly you can move out of the way. You can do a Strength. This is getting unrealistic now. You can do a Strength saving throw to see if maybe you've just punched the rock and split it in half. That's probably just as a dungeon master, I would say you would need to roll 25 for that. So if you roll 20 on your 20-sided die, plus your ability score modifier or your saving throw modifier of +5, it is theoretically possible that you can do that. If everything goes in your favor, you just punch the rock and it splits in half, and everybody at the table cheers for you because you not only didn't get hit by the rock, but also you saved everybody else from being smashed and crushed and other adjectives. That's not an adjective, it's a fucking... Anyway, you get the idea. Intelligence saving throw, you might say, I don't do anything, I'm just gonna think and figure out that this is not really a rock, it's actually an illusion of a rock that this other wizard is making it. I don't know, something like that. Depending on the situation, your dungeon master will adapt to whatever crazy idea you have for avoiding the rock that's hurtling towards you. That doesn't really happen in the game, by the way. I've never had a situation where there was a hurtling rock hurtling. I'm saying the word hurtling a lot as if I like it, and I really don't use. Anyway, you get the idea of saving throws. Senses are passive things. You really don't need to care about these. This is more for your dungeon master to know. When you walk in a room, for example, if your passive wisdom or your passive your perception is high, then you might, without even trying, notice that one of the walls looks a bit different from the others, and thereby discover that there's a secret door behind the wall or something like that. That's what passive is. It's passive, so it doesn't involve you in any way. It's the dungeon master's job to keep track of these things and set up the scenario accordingly. Proficiencies and languages. So languages are pretty self-explanatory. Common is the language that everybody speaks, except for like creatures that don't, like animals don't speak common, and most devils don't speak common. They speak abyssal or undercommon or that kind of thing. This guy also speaks goblin, as selected by us in the last session. Tools, 3 Dragonantis set. This is a game within the game of Dungeons and Dragons, which hasn't come up in any of my games so far, but it could in yours. If you want these sorts of things to be a big part of the game that you're playing, speak to your DM. Let him know, or her know, what kind of game you want to play. Weapons, martial and simple. There are others. They are like ranged weapons, for example, which we do not have proficiency in. If we were a ranger, surprise, we would have proficiency in ranged weapons. Armor, heavy, light, medium. I think that's all the types of armor there are, actually. I mean, what the hell else is there? And shields, so just all the armor. In fact, let's stick with weapons for now. So we will use a longsword, for example, when we're trying to do an attack on a monster. So how do you do that? So as I explained earlier, in order to do something in this game, all you have to do is say, I am doing this thing. In combat, there are certain rules that have to be followed in order to ensure that the game is fair and so on. So the first thing you're going to do in combat is roll initiative. And what that means, initiative is the thing that determines what order, in what order you and the rest of your party are going to take their turns. And if you are a fighter with a dexterity of +2, your initiative also gets a +2. This is just, it's the same, it's copy pasted from here. So if you roll initiative, you roll a d20, you get an 18, +2 is 20. So there's a pretty good chance that in this fight, we are going to go first. And when we go first, what is the first thing that we do? This is a little counterintuitive, but you have to just go with it. Okay, there are many alternatives to this system to make it more realistic, but they have the disadvantage of making the system more complicated, and therefore it makes fights and combat a slog to get through. So this is one of the things that you just have to accept. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to roll attack. This determines whether or not you actually successfully hit your target or you miss it. So we're going to do that, and we rolled a natural 20. A natural 20, it's a great thing that we just did that because it allows me to explain some extra stuff. A natural 20 is the best thing in this game. When you do that, not only do you hit your target, but you also do basically twice the damage. And the reason I'm saying basically in there is it's not exactly that you do twice the damage, you roll twice the dice. So if you remember, before I clicked on here, this was not blue, this was red, and it said 1d8 plus 3 and 1d10 plus 3 over here. Now we can only do the 1d8 plus 3 because, as explained in the last video, we're wielding it with one hand and we got the shield in the other hand. That's why we got the armor class of 19. But we now get to roll 2 8-sided dice and then add the plus 3 to them. You only add the modifier once. Okay. And that modifier is the same as your strength modifier. So if our strength modifier was +2, because our strength was like if our constitution and our strength were, for example, swapped around, the strength would have been 15 and the modifier would have been +2. Therefore this +3 would have been a +2 as well, and the hit and the attack roll, I'm going to call this the attack roll, would have been +4. Why would it have been +4? Because the attack roll is made up of, for this type of weapon, your strength modifier plus your proficiency modifier if you are proficient in the weapon that you're holding. And being a warrior, we are proficient in martial weapons over here. So we add the proficiency bonus to the attack roll and also the strength roll, which is +3. So that altogether is +5, which is why we had 20. We rolled the 20. +5 equals 25. Okay. You might be confused by the fact that there wasn't a 20 on the die. There was a B. Most companies that make dice, and I guess it's simulated stupidly on this platform here as well, they don't, instead of a 20, they have like a star or something just to make it feel special, I guess. It's a stupid thing. And also this digital rolling of dice, it's a stupid thing. You even get like custom dice on this platform. It's a bit, yeah, apparently there's no, a lot of people have complained about it, but there's no way around it. Anyway, that's a tangent, never mind. I've gone off so many paths now that there's a way to finish that sentence in a sort of witty way, but it's a reference that most people won't get, that refers to a show called Flash Forward. Anyway, the Garden of Forking Paths. Forget it. If you got that, let me know in the comments down below, and subscribe and do the algorithm stuff, please, to help out the channel, because I'm about to be unemployed. Anyway, Now, because we rolled a natural 20 means before you add any modifiers, you rolled a 20, mean there was a 20 on the dice, or the funny little symbol thing in our case. Um, because we rolled a natural 20, we get to roll twice the dice. And this, I've been edging on this for so long now, it's just about to burst when I finally click this. So let's click it now. Right, now we roll 2 dice. 2 and 6 is 8, plus 3 is 11. We're going to do 11 points of damage to whatever the hell that was. And because we rolled a natural 20, no matter what the armor class of our target is, it's going to be a success, because that's just one of the rules of D&D, is natural 20 is always successful. So you will notice now that this changed back to 1d8. And if we roll another natural 20, which is very unlikely, or equally unlikely, just equally likely as always, because no to the gambler's fallacy, we will just do a normal damage of 1d8 if it's if we roll again, unless it's a natural 20 again. I hope that made sense. Go ahead and rewind this if it didn't. I'm sure it will be. I'm sure I will explain it better the second time that you watch this, even though I say the same words. Okay, this video is going great. My goodness. I think that's it for the attacks. That's pretty much it. Let's just, for the hell of it, let's just do this again. Roll attack. We rolled a 10 plus 5 is 15. We roll damage 1d8, and whatever that was behind these numbers. Oh, we got the highest, 8 plus 3. So once again, we did the same amount of damage with the 1d8 as we did with the 2d8, because sometimes that happens. Life is funny that way sometimes. And that is combat. That, I mean, there's a lot more involved in it. There's such things as two-weapon fighting, which is a thing that can happen, but now we're holding a shield, so we can't really do two-weapon fighting. This is a kind of thing that depends on your dungeon master. It just doesn't make sense to me in the same turn to do two-weapon fighting if you're only holding one weapon. You might have other weapons like in your backpack or whatever, but that's not combat. And that's I think that's pretty much it. These skills, yes, we didn't go through the skills, so let's go through them now. This, you can tell this is a one-take video because of all the tangents and nonsense that I'm getting up to. So, skills. Each of these skills is tied to one of these ability scores. You'll notice the modifier is dexterity, wisdom, intelligence, etc. If you are proficient, so that means whatever your modifier is for dexterity, that's your acrobatics modifier as well. Unless you are proficient in a certain skill like athletics, in which case you also add your proficiency modifier, proficiency bonus. So plus 3 plus 5 is 5. We're low on charisma, for example. The charisma score that we have is -1 for the charisma modifier, but we're also proficient in intimidation because we're a fighter. Therefore, -1 plus 2 is +1. That's how all of this is calculated. You don't need to calculate this when you're playing the game. I'm just telling you how these scores are arrived at, so you have an idea, so you're not just blindly just clicking numbers. I'm trying to explain how all of this stuff fits together. Okay, what haven't we gone over on this page? Walking speed. This is just the speed at which you walk normally. That's it. 30 foot, it uses the Imperial system because Dungeons and Dragons is an American game, and you can think of this as this is a medieval world. They're not that advanced yet. They haven't invented the metric system, uh, which is just superior in every way. That's you just have to imagine. That's what I do to sleep at night. We've gone over initiative, armor class, proficiency. We have defenses, resistance, of which there are none. But here's what we can have. Choose resistances, acid, bludgeoning, cold, etc. So, for example, if you are if you're a zombie, you would be immune to necrotic damage because you yourself are necrotic. If you are a mind flayer, which is a really cool, one of the best types of enemies in the game, you might be immune to psychic damage or resistant to psychic damage or whatever. Or you might be vulnerable. So, for example, if you are made of fire, you're vulnerable to water, that kind of thing. But now we're not going to do any of that because we're not customizing this character. Conditions. Here are all the conditions that you can have. They all come with their own little explanations and conditions for the conditions and consequences and so on. If you are, for example, blinded, then you just do that and it will be added on here, and anything that applies to it will be applied to it. So if you're blinded, I don't know what that's supposed to. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out when we play the game. Okay. Inspiration. So this is a kind of flavorful thing that you can have. When you play really well, when you do something that helps the fun of the game, if you help out a character by, for example, if you have dark vision and they do not, you take your fellow comrade by the hand and lead them through the dark cave without them having to light a torch, so you can both be stealthy even though you're a fighter and you actually don't have dark vision. You get an inspiration point and you can use that to get advantage on a roll. What is advantage on a roll? Well, advantage means instead of rolling one die for whatever you're trying to do, that's going to be the 20-sided die, you roll 2 dice and you take the higher of the 2 rolls. So if we are rolling with advantage on an attack, then we roll twice. And in this case, the first roll was a 4, plus 5 was 9. The second roll was a 20, plus 5 is 25, which was a critical hit, that's what the natural 20 is, a critical hit. So now we get to do roll twice the dice for damage, and that was 3 plus 3 plus 3 is 9, and my tongue is getting tied up, but I have shown you what advantage is. Disadvantage is just the opposite of that. You once again roll twice, and you take the lower of the 2 rolls and then apply whatever modifier you want to it, or you should to it. You may think, is there such a thing as double advantage or double disadvantage? No, there isn't. Even though you could be under several conditions that give you disadvantage, for example, you're walking through difficult terrain, you can't see properly, you are charmed, etc., you still only roll 2 dice and take the lower of the 2 rolls. I don't know why they did it that way, but that's the way the game has been set up. And who am I to criticize or question things? Well, I'm me. I question everything, but I'm not going to question that because of reasons. Okay. One thing we haven't gone over in this video, and we won't, is magic. This is a basic character, and I'm not going over magic in this video. I will do so in the next one, and 25 minutes is a good place to stop. and there are 10 seconds of that left. So in those 10 seconds, I'm going to go over hit points. This is how much damage you can hit, and this is how you do that. So if